Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are taking our very first look at the new Tier 4 British battleship slash battlecruiser, the Tiger. So, with that being said, we're going to look at our commander. We're running Azure Lane Nelson with Azure Lane Scharnhorst and Paolo de Revel as our inspirations. We are running Flammable Cannoneer, Gyrating Drill Bits, Marksmanship, and Master Mechanic with Fight Fire with Fire. Obviously, this is not the ideal build for everything. This is the one that I'm going with because this is the commander that I use for pretty much all my British battleships. It is a very good setup if you have it. Obviously, if you're a free-to-play player, you don't have this, so you may want to run Andrew Cunningham or Charles Madden. If you run Charles Madden, you get the extra heals. If you run Andrew Cunningham, you get the dispersion. Personally, if you have to choose between the two of them, I think you want to go with dispersion for this entire line, because these guns are going to do you a lot of good. And if you learn to angle, you don't need the heals as much. Okay, so keep that in mind. But if you run Andrew Cunningham and you're going full, free to play, then Paolo de Revel and either Robert Gijard or go with like William Sims for some extra hit points wouldn't be necessarily the worst. So keep that in mind. Or maybe even Iachito, the Italian commander, for the extra dispersion or grouping or whatever it is that he gives as well. So that would be my best idea for you for these battle cruisers for a free-to-play player. Okay, so keep that in mind. Don't use Will to rebuild though. Use Fight Fire with Fire. This is an old build. I haven't used this commander in forever. That's why it still has this connected. But definitely use Fight Fire with Fire. Will to rebuild is almost useless nowadays. You're almost never going to be right next to a teammate to be able to take advantage of that anyway. So just Fight Fire with Fire will come in handy against all the HE spam that's out there. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's get into our build. There really isn't much about it. We get Aiming Systems Mod 1, right? And then, of course, we are fully upgraded so that I can show you guys the best that the ship has to offer. I do want to look at one thing, though. If we look at our Iron Duke, what size guns does the Iron Duke have? It is the 343mm 45 caliber Mark 5s. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So obviously we're running the Italian Unity flag because if you squint just right, it kind of looks like a Spartan flag. And then I'm running Type 4 camo for the extra concealment and incoming fire dispersion. It's not a permanent camo. I just run this for the extra bonuses, right? So you get 5 heals with this build. This is what you could expect if you run a Madden build as well, if you want to go with a full tank build. But just remember that these things do better in medium to long range, so I highly recommend an accuracy build. Give up the extra heals to just focus on the guns. Try to get the guns as accurate as possible in these if you can, or at least focus on guns and reload, okay? It does have engine boost, which is fantastic. You'd love to see it. 8% engine boost, so a standard engine boost, nothing crazy there. And it comes stock with the enhanced secondary targeting booster. The secondaries on this thing aren't particularly amazing. We'll go over that in a moment. So, survivability, 49,600 hit points with a 13% torpedo damage reduction. Artillery, you've got the 343mm 45 caliber Mark IIs. I don't remember what I just said that the other one, or the Iron Duke was using. I can't remember if it was Mark IIs. No, they were Mark 5s, right? Pretty sure they were Mark 5s. So these are actually an older gun than the Iron Dukes. And they do feel like that. The Iron Dukes guns seem very, very punchy. These tend to be a little bit meh. The penetration angles on these shells don't seem to be as good, in my opinion, in the couple of games. Just bear in mind, I've only played a couple of games in this, very small sample size, but I feel like I've got a pretty good feel for the guns. I've got a pretty good feel for the ship because I've played against a higher tier lobby and I've played in a tier or in a lobby where I am at, the max tier or the highest tier. So we're top tier, right? So firing range is not particularly amazing, but it's not terrible. 15.7 kilometers. In a tier 4 match, it's not so bad. In a tier 5 match, when you get bottom tier, that 15.7 really does come into play. So keep that in mind. Your range isn't the greatest. And at that range, your shells are going to be sus. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. Reload time, 28.4 seconds is not terrible, so keep that in mind. That's kind of the British thing, though. The British have always had decent reloads right out the gate, even if they have decent-sized guns. So having a good reload is good. One thing that this has over the Iron Duke, though, is it has a much better 180-degree turn time on the turret traverse. Only 24 seconds. That is fantastic for battleships, okay? Especially big guns. I mean, these are 13.5-inch guns. I know, that's weird. 343s always throw me off. I have to look it up every single time. I'm like, wait, what? But just like every other battleship at the tier, as long as you have decent-sized battleship guns, which these do, you can overmatch every single Tier 4 battleship with the exception of the Peter Veliki. The Peter Veliki has a bow that is not overmatchable. It's the only one. Everybody else has some part of their bow that does allow you to overmatch. Some of them have, a lot of them actually at this tier, have an extended belt that goes all the way up to the bow. And we'll get into that when we get into the armor viewer here in a moment. HE shell maximum damage is 5,050 with a 39% chance to set fires. AP shell maximum damage is 10,395. Secondary armament, you have 152mm 45 caliber BL PV8s. I don't know what the P is for, but P8s. Okay. 12 of those, reaching out to just 4.7 kilometers and reloading in 5 seconds. So they at least reload pretty quickly, especially for 152mm guns. They fire HE with a maximum damage of 2,200 and a great fire chance of 12%. So the secondaries are decent, but I still wouldn't build for secondaries on these particular ships because most of the time you don't want to be brawling with a ship that can be easily punished through the bow. And that looks like it's going to be a theme all the way through this line. Obviously, most ships at Tier 4, or pretty much all battleships at Tier 4, can be overmatched through the bow, so that's not anything new. You should be used to it. Dreadnought Shuffle, we'll talk about that some more in a moment, but just keep that in mind. As for the torpedoes, I mean, you might as well forget that you have these. They only have 6-kilometer range, so getting somebody within 6 kilometers is going to be sus at best. You have 2 torpedoes per side, one at the bow, one at the stern, and yeah, I mean, they do 10,000 damage, but they don't really... Like the range, and they're slow. Like it's difficult. Just forget you have them unless somebody's coming around an island rushing you, in which case you may be able to sneak them in there. But just keep that in mind, okay? AA defense, just forget about it. You're low tier. You don't have any AA. I believe this is actually better than most AA at the tier, but still, 40mm 39 caliber QF Mark IIs. You get 10 of them, 57 damage per second, reaching out to just 2.5 kilometers. So again, they don't start firing until they're already dropping the bombs down your smokestack. 76.2mm 45 caliber HA Mark IVs. You get 6 of those, doing 13 damage per second, reaching out to 3 kilometers. Maneuverability, you get 26.1 knots, which is fantastic. I believe that's right up there with other battle cruisers, such as the Japanese battle cruisers like the Congo and the, what do you call it? The Congo and the Ishizuki and stuff like that. So the stuff that you're going to go up against for the most part is going to be slower than you, with the exception of the Japanese battle cruisers or the German battle cruisers potentially. I can't remember what their speeds are. But for the most part, you're going to have a bit of a speed advantage, especially keeping in mind that you do have that engine boost. So you're going to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest, battleships on the ocean when you're out there. Okay? Rudder shift time, not particularly amazing, but when you consider the fact that you don't get to use a steering gears on this thing, it's not bad. 740-meter turning circle and a 14.2-second rudder shift isn't terrible. You can Dreadnought Shuffle even if it's not the best. Just got to plan ahead, all right? Concealment, though, 12.4 kilometer surface detectability, 10.4 by air, 2 guaranteed as always, and 10.9 kilometer smoke firing penalty. Statistics. As you can see, I've played 2 games. I've won 1, I've lost 1. As far as the main gun accuracy, they bit sus, but still decent at 47%. Warships, damage to ships average is 86,000, which is fantastic. That was kind of a, I don't know. The last game that I had was much better and kind of carried that a little bit, so keep that in mind. I'll talk about both games that I played so that you guys have a better understanding. But from an armor standpoint, this thing is actually pretty well armored. Other than the bow, which we've already talked about, every Tier 4 battleship, with the exception of the Peter Veliki, has an overmatchable bow by every other battleship at Tier 4. So that is one of the things that I always talked about when we do the ranked duels at Tier 4 battleships. Like, you just punch straight through each other's bow. You have to learn to armor, or to angle. You have to use the Dreadnought Shuffle to give you the advantage in those fights. Now, with that being said, you will notice that there is, where is it? 127 millimeter extended belt. Now, what is that? That little orange strip that almost goes all the way up to the bow? That is your extended belt. Why is that important? If you open up the angle, it doesn't take a huge amount of angling in this thing, and you can deflect a lot of rounds. Now, obviously, there's still a lot of that 16 millimeter bow side plating right there, but just saying that you do have a bit of an extended belt, so there's a lot of shells that normally would pin that'll hit that belt and just ricochet or shatter. And if you angle properly and really open up the angle and do that lifting the skirt that we always talk about, you know, where you kind of show them about this much of the ship, and then just as they fire, you close it a little bit. They'll fire at your center of your ship thinking they're going to get the big hit, and what they end up with is hitting all of this beautiful torpedo protection that is going to make them miserable and just bounce and shatter everything. Okay, so keep that in mind. Learn to do the Dreadnought Shuffle. I don't know how many times I got to repeat this. We've been playing this game for over 4 years. I've said the same thing from the get-go. The Dreadnought Shuffle, especially at these lower tiers, man. At high tiers, too. You believe it or not, I sucker people into it, even at Legendary tier to this day. People always want to go for the big hit. They just do. Everybody wants the Citadel. Everybody wants to hit you as hard as possible. So if you open the skirt and you're already turning back in, they'll fire at the center of your ship. They'll auto bounce and ricochet 90% of the time off of your belt, because people are suckers. And it's just the way it is. They're predictable. It's easy angling. Okay? So let's get rid of all of this and show you the one thing that I think is going to be not talked about by anybody else. And that is this thing's underwater citadel. Look at this thing. It's underwater, with the exception, okay, and this is for all of you guys out there thinking, how do I kill this thing? If it's kiting away, or if it's broadside, aim a little further back than normal. You want to hit between the rear two turrets. As you can see, there is a small amount of citadel that is sticking up above the waterline. It's a very small section, and this reminds me very much of the Japanese battle cruisers in having that little hump at the back. So if you want to citadel these things, you want to aim a little bit further back. If you're trying to go through the cheek, there's a good chance you're going to hit that belt and bounce or ricochet, unless you've got a really good flat broadside into that cheek. Okay, so don't necessarily always go for the cheek on these, because you're going to have that extended belt bite you in the butt. However, if you catch them broadside, aim a little further back than center of ship, and if you pin, you will absolutely citadel these things right here at the back, between the rear two turrets. So keep that in mind. The other thing I want to point out is a theme that's going to be a problem with these battle cruisers, in that if they are kiting away, they actually have very little room between the rear of the ship and the citadel. So there's another potential chance for you to citadel the ship as it's kiting away. So if you can get through the rear side plating, or as they go up in tier, you'll have a flat booty. Go through that flat booty with penetrations, and there's a good chance that you can citadel them straight through the booty. Okay, so keep that in mind. These are the little things that nobody ever talks about in these videos. I'm the only person that actually goes into the armor viewer and talks about the strengths of the armor and the weaknesses of the armor. Everybody will point out, oh, it's got a 25 millimeter bow, or it's got, but nobody actually talks about the little nuances of the armor that make a ship good or bad, and how you can use it to your advantage if you're using the ship, and how you can use it to your advantage if you're going against the ship. That's why I like to do it, okay? So overview, full ahead, it is equipped with an engine boost. Hidden, good concealment. Compromising, high caliber AP shells are more likely to over-penetrate the armor, but may still arm in some cases. Just assume that they're going to arm, okay? I don't think I've been over-pinned much in this ship. It is very, very thick at the waterline, so anything that gets through there, if you're over-angled, is going to do some full penetration damage. Just assume that you're going to be full pinned, okay? You're not as likely to take the citadels, like we explained, but just know that if you get caught broadside, you're going to pay for it. Tiger. In January of 1911, Japan ordered the development and construction of a battlecruiser in Great Britain that received the name, holy crap! I knew I wasn't, like, this is why, that received the name Congo. It turned out to be better than the current British ships, and because of that, a similar project was selected to build a new battlecruiser within the 1911 program. HMS Tiger was laid down in 1912 and commissioned in 1914 as a part of the 1st Battlecruiser Squadron. She participated in the Battle of Dogger Bank and Battle of Jutland, taking 21 hits in the process and suffering heavy damage. She entered service in 1914 and there were one of them built. I knew this thing felt like a freaking Congo when it comes to the armor. Okay, let's look at the Congo. It's Japanese, the other way, Spartan. I knew it! I'm not crazy! I might actually know something. Okay, let's look at the armor. And specifically the Citadel. Like, we don't care about the rest. We just want to look at the Citadel. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Y'all thought I was crazy. Y'all thought I was crazy. Y'all probably be like, oh, Spartan, what do you mean? See the hump? That's what I'm talking about. This is literally a oh my god. I knew it felt familiar and why I didn't necessarily care for the ship, but there you have it. All right, folks. So with all of that being said, and the fact that I have now been officially verified as somebody who maybe knows what they're talking about occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally, let's take a look at the ship. And honestly, I mean, there's nothing bad to say about the look of the ship. It's definitely an older ship design, but it's classic. It is a classic triple stacker. You love to see just these older, you got all the casemates in the world. You even have a second level of casemates there on the raised deck. It's kind of nice. I don't mind it. I really don't. I like the older look of some of these. I love casemates. Y'all know that. I love pretty much any design that has a whole bunch of casemates. So with all of that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we are going to start this one out, and I'm going to start talking about the first match that I played. Now, in the first match, I was literally thrown to the wolves. Like, it was a tier 5 match, so put this into perspective. I was up against, on my side of the map, an Arizona, a New York, a Warspite, and a West Virginia. And there was a rattlesnake in there because you got to have an Omaha somewhere, tier 4 and 5, right? Then, to make it even better, I had 2 cruisers on my side, and both of them just went straight out and got murdered in record time. It was pretty impressive, actually. But, needless to say, I battled as hard as I could, and I had to figure out just how bad these shells can be at times, because they just don't seem to have that punchiness that I like. And one of the things that I really like about the British in particular is that they seem to really pin pretty much anywhere. That wasn't the case in that fight. I still ended up pulling out a decent game overall. I think I did somewhere between 70 and 80k damage, but overall, not particularly amazing, and didn't feel very good about it. However, this game is going to showcase what this ship is capable of if played well and have good support in a top-tier environment. And I think you'll get to see that among tier 4 battleships, this thing's pretty good. Now, if you love the Congo, clearly you're going to love this ship. I personally didn't like the Congo, and I'll stand by that. But this ship in particular, when it's top tier, it's pretty nasty. When it's bottom tier, not so much. But we're going to rush forward. We're going to use our engine boost to keep up with our cruiser. Now, there are 4 destroyers on the enemy team, but it's tier 4 destroyers or less. So I'm not as scared of them. We have a destroyer that spawned in and is immediately charging forward. And I want you guys to keep an eye on the destroyer that's with me, which is a Mutsuki, and the Phoenix that is off to my right, which is a tier 3 American cruiser. Also, like I said, there's always got to be an Omaha tier 4 or 5, right? So here we go. Broadside Omaha. Absolutely begging for it, sailing in a straight line, and pow! Shocker. Somehow he survives. That's the impressive part. We only hit him with 3 shells. 2 of them were citadels. So, unfortunate, not enough to finish him off, but of course, you know, in true Spartan fashion, we got to leave him with just enough to get away. But it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, The guy, honestly, this time he at least tries to run and turn, but it's too little too late. He's already lost all of his hit points, and at this point, if I hit him with 1 or 2 shells, he's dead. And the one shell that actually managed to hit him goes straight through the deck and citadels him again. Now, Mutsuki gets spotted here, and we got a little bit of Mutsuki on Mutsuki crime happening. You got a Mutsuki running a concealment build, spotting their Mutsuki. Their enemy, I think it's an issue, or no, it's Congo. Hey, look! It's a mirror match. It's a Congo versus the Tiger, except I have torpedoes, right? So maybe that's a big deal. Also, I'm shooting armor piercing and he's shooting high explosive. Now, first shot out, sus accuracy, but after the shot on the Omaha, I can't really complain about accuracy. But look here, torpedoes come in and somehow the Phoenix dodged them. It's almost like he was paying attention. At tier 4. Well, he's tier 3. Like, that's impressive. I'm used to seeing people just sail straight into torpedoes every step of the way at this tier. But no, I'm telling you. Now, this Congo, he comes out from the island. He is begging for it. Now, to his credit, he is trying to shoot the destroyer. And he does use HE. Now, the enemy Mutsuki manages to run right into our Phoenix, which is not good for him because that's death. That's just simply death. There ain't no way a Mutsuki beats a Phoenix, especially in a gunfight. But Congo is begging for it still. He's still shooting HE. We are going to go straight through the front. Now, remember, he could be citadel further back, but I can't take a shot at that right now because he's angled slightly. So we're just going through what he's given us. We're taking what he gives us, and we get a nasty hit. And, of course, our Mutsuki, using the smoke screen that the enemy Mutsuki was nice enough to leave him, manages to finish him off. And at this point, I'm ecstatic. Like, I get better teamwork. It's sad. It really is. I love coming down to lower tiers occasionally because I swear, you get better teammates at tier 4 and tier 5 than you ever will at tier 7, 8, and legendary tier. And that's just saying something. I think it's more down to people realizing that they have to work together. And I don't understand why at higher tiers that doesn't happen. Everybody at higher tiers just seems to be in a hurry to throw their ships away, and at lower tiers, it's like they know that they're in, ships that are not capable necessarily of carrying every match solo, or maybe they're just not as confident in their skills, so they don't end up putting themselves in bad positions. They tend to rely on teammates a little bit more. And this is the prime example. Now, this enemy G101, I look over, he hasn't moved. He was the one spotting us. We knew there was another destroyer nearby. He was the one spotting us, and he hasn't moved. So, given the fact that I have a Phoenix right there, I don't even bother to shoot him. I know he's AFK. Phoenix will mop him up, no problem. So, I look over, Phoenix is shooting him. We get a good shot out here on the Derflinger, and you can see that we are getting some bounces and shatters, but we're also getting some overpins and some full pins. So we're doing solid damage output. But the enemy Visby is actually coming towards us. Now, I obviously want to take a shot at the enemy destroyer. If you see a destroyer, you shoot at the destroyer. Why? Because if you don't, there's a good chance at some point he's going to come back after you. So we are going to try to lead him. I thought he was going to turn behind the island here, so we lead it just a little bit. We're able to squeeze a couple of rounds through. We get a hit. It's better than nothing. We took a good little chunk off of him with an overpin. But Visby is now actually going to play relatively smart. He's going to try to help get rid of the destroyer that's over there. Between him and the enemy Derflinger, they're going to work together, get rid of our destroyer. Our Mutsuki, though, is about to go full ham. And here's one thing I will say about this Mutsuki. I respect the idea of going straight after this Visby. And we're going to help him out. We're going to take another shot. Visby actually turns away immediately, which probably saves his life there, because I was aimed for him to stay in a straight line. But he turns away. We only get a couple of hits. But Mutsuki is in a gunfight. But he's not just in a gunfight. He's also dropping torps on the Derflinger. And so I respect the crap out of this Mutsuki player, because Mutsuki, remember, it only has 2 guns, right? It just goes toot, 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 toot. It's got 1 front gun, 1 rear gun. It is pathetic firepower, but he's doing what he can, right? And while I don't recommend you throw your ship away in this situation, look at what he accomplished. He killed the Derflinger, right? Huge. And he helped get rid of the enemy Visby. He did a little bit of damage, kept him spotted. Our team was able to then finish the guy off. Now we're down to just a full health Ishizuki and an enemy destroyer, which I've never actually heard of. I want to say it's, I I forget what it's called. We'll see it in a moment. But I forget what it's called, but it is a destroyer I've never even heard of before. So I'll be interested to see what this thing is like when you guys talk about it. Maybe it's new, maybe it's not. I don't know. Sometimes there's some new ships that come out that I just don't know about, especially at lower tiers. Maybe it's a console exclusive or something. Who knows? But it's a ship that I've never seen before, but I don't spend a lot of time at tier 4. But we are going to push into the cap over here because, obviously, we have the 2 cap advantage. We're up against another battle cruiser in the Ishizuki, so I'm not scared. It's a tier 3 as well, so I'm not really worried about him at all. So we're just going to go straight into the cap. He is sailing broadside. Notice we aim a little bit high here. We're not aiming super high. We're still probably going to hit the belt, but he's basically flat broadside, so these are going to do damage. And there you see it. 3 full pins, 1 overpin. Not a bad result considering we're only sending 8 rounds downrange. You're hitting 50% of your shells most of the time if you're at these kind of ranges. So just aim for damage. You're not trying to citadel things, and that's one thing I want you guys to focus on with these particular ships. The pin angles aren't the greatest, and here you'll see me shoot a little bit lower. I'm shooting right at the water line, seeing if there's a chance that I citadel, but again, we get 3 full pins, and that's it. You're hitting roughly 50%. Now, I know that the destroyer's in the cap. See, I'm contested, so the destroyer's likely coming right at me, and sure enough, here he is. Now, he's less than the turbine, that's what it is. I had no idea what this thing is. I'll be real honest. You'll see that I'm like, okay, well, what's our secondary firing range here? And it's 4.7. So once we're inside that, I go ahead and trigger my secondary booster. You got him. Might as well use him if you're in a situation. Now, obviously, main guns absolutely neutered this guy. But the secondaries, despite having the booster running, are just flat out not able to hit the turbine. We get 1 hit there, and it takes most of his health that he had remaining, but we anticipated him launching his torpedoes early. You can see they sail harmlessly by, and we're going to go ahead and hit our damage control. So we have managed to play basically the perfect game here. We have done everything correct. We've had amazing teamwork from our teammates, and you'll see what I mean by our teammates. It's not just us. It's not just me, the Phoenix, and the Mitsuki. This entire team basically played perfectly, and that's one thing that I wish we had more of in this game. And I know I get a rap for always saying that teammates are bad or this or that, but I really do wish that we had more teamwork on both sides because it makes for more compelling matches. This one wasn't really in doubt because the enemy kind of threw themselves away, and then there was an AFK destroyer. But look at this, aiming high, that's where we're getting the pins. You see what I'm saying? When you hit that upper side plating, you're getting full pins every single time. So try to aim higher on these, and you're going to be rewarded with more damage per salvo. Because the guns are decently accurate. They're not super accurate. It is tier 4. You're going to have those troll salvos, but for the most part, these things are pretty reliable. And I'm not going to lie, I was really glad that this guy hit his heel because that allows me to managed to get the kill shot here. As he turns away, we aim high, aiming for that superstructure, knowing we just need a couple of pins, and there it is. Beautiful shot right into the superstructure. Only needed 2 hits to kill. So let me know what you guys think. Are you enjoying this line as much as I am? Yes, I didn't really care for the ship at first, but when it's top tier, this thing's a beast. 116,000 damage at tier 4. I mean, what more can you ask for? 2,000 base XP, but look, Mitsuki 2,000 base XP with 2 kills. Phoenix, almost 2,000 XP with 2 kills. Montkukuli, 1,500 base XP with 3 kills. And 2 more people with over 1,000 XP at tier 4. Like, that is a all-star cast of team working together. I love to see it. So let me know what you guys think, and if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.